The discovery. Ethan had always been careful. Living on a space station shared by dozens of alien species meant he had to be. Humans were not the most advanced species in the galaxy, and many aliens saw them as weak, slow, or primitive. That was fine with Ethan. He liked keeping secrets. But today, he made a mistake. In a rush to get to his engineering shift, he forgot to lock his personal storage unit, the one where he kept his most valuable human equipment. His alien roommate, Zixara, had never been one to snoop. She was a Zikari, a reptilian species covered in smooth, dark blue scales. Her people were known for their intelligence, their pride, and their deep curiosity. So when Zixara walked past Ethan's section of their shared apartment and saw the storage unit slightly open, she hesitated. Ethan was always so secretive about his work. He didn't talk much about human technology, and whenever she asked, he would just smile and change the subject. She had always assumed humans were, well, simple. They were physically weaker than many species and had only recently joined the Galactic Council. But now she saw a chance to peek into Ethan's mysterious world. She shouldn't. She really shouldn't. But curiosity got the best of her. Slowly, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The first thing she noticed was the strange blue glow coming from a device on the table. Zixara's eyes narrowed as she approached it. The device was sleek, metallic, and completely unfamiliar. It wasn't standard station technology, nor was it anything she had seen from other alien species. Her clawed fingers hovered over it, hesitating. Was it safe? As soon as she touched it, the device hummed to life. A soft vibration ran through her hand, and a holographic display appeared above it, filled with symbols she didn't recognize. Zixara's heart raced. What was this? She looked around the storage unit and realized there was more. Neatly arranged on the shelves were other pieces of human equipment, each one more advanced than the last. A small black metallic weapon sat on the table, looking deceptively simple, until she picked it up. The grip fit perfectly in her hand, and as soon as her fingers touched a certain spot, a targeting display appeared on the side. Zixara inhaled sharply. This was no ordinary human tool. She had seen weapons before. She had even trained with some. But this one was something else. It was compact, efficient, and years ahead of anything her people had developed. But that wasn't all. She moved to another shelf and found a small round device with a silver ring around it. When she pressed a button, the air around her shifted, just slightly, but enough for her to feel it. A gravitational manipulator. Her mind raced. This technology was not supposed to exist at this level. The Galactic Council always said humans were behind in advancements, that they were lucky to even be part of the spacefaring community. But this was far from primitive. A terrifying thought crept into her mind. What else have humans been hiding? Zixara turned back to the table, her claws tightening around the sleek weapon. Did Ethan know about this? Of course he did. This was his equipment, his secret, and now she had seen it. For the first time since meeting her human roommate, Zixara felt something strange. It wasn't just surprise. It wasn't just curiosity. It was fear. She had always thought humans were harmless. Friendly, sure. Smart, maybe, but not dangerous. Now, as she stood in the middle of Ethan's storage unit, surrounded by advanced, unexplainable technology, she realized something deeply unsettling. Humans weren't weak. They were hiding their strength, and she had just stepped into a secret she wasn't supposed to know. Suddenly, she heard footsteps outside. Her head snapped toward the door. Ethan was back. Her heart pounded as she looked at the equipment around her, at the weapon still in her hands. She had seconds to decide what to do. Did she confront him? Pretend she had seen nothing? Before she could move, the door swung open. Ethan stepped inside, his expression changing instantly as his eyes locked onto her. For the first time, Zixara saw something in him she had never seen before. Not kindness, not humor, but calculated awareness. His eyes flicked to the gun in her hands, to the device still glowing on the table. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, in a voice calm and steady, Ethan asked the only question that mattered. "Zixara, what are you doing?" Shock and realization. Zixara's mind raced. She had been caught. Ethan stood at the entrance of the storage unit, his gaze locked onto her. He wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling. But his eyes were sharp, too sharp. For the first time, Zixara felt small in front of a human. The weapon in her hand suddenly felt heavier, like she was holding something she wasn't meant to touch. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Ethan took a slow step forward. "I'll ask again," he said, voice calm but firm. "What are you doing?" Zixara's claws tightened around the sleek, black weapon she had picked up. Her instincts screamed at her to drop it, to step back, to apologize. But she didn't. Instead, she lifted the gun slightly, her reptilian eyes narrowing as she studied him. "This," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is not normal human technology." Ethan exhaled through his nose, his jaw tightening. He wasn't surprised she figured it out. "Where did you get this?" she pressed. "The Galactic Council says humans are still developing energy-based weapons. They say your technology is decades behind the major species." She turned the gun over in her hands. "This," she continued, voice growing stronger, "is not behind." She flicked a switch on the side, and a holographic targeting reticle flared to life, locking onto Ethan's chest with deadly precision. Ethan didn't flinch. "That's enough," he said quietly. Zixara hesitated, then reluctantly lowered the gun. She looked at the other equipment around her. The gravity manipulator, the shock blade, the advanced scanning visor. And realization hit her all at once. She wasn't looking at random human tools. She was looking at military-grade equipment. Secret equipment. And that meant only one thing. Ethan wasn't just an engineer. He was something more. A cold feeling spread through her chest. "I thought humans were weak," she muttered, almost to herself. Ethan let out a small chuckle, shaking his head. "That's what everyone thinks," he said. "And that's exactly why we let them believe it." Zixara's throat went dry. "They're wrong, aren't they?" she asked. Ethan's smirk faded. His expression turned serious, his calm confidence sending a chill down her spine. "Yes," he said simply. Zixara took a slow step back, glancing at the open storage unit, at the terrifyingly advanced human technology she had just uncovered. The Galactic Council had lied to them. Or worse, humans had fooled the entire galaxy. How? How had they managed to keep something this big a secret? Her mind raced through possibilities. Was it intentional? A survival strategy? Had humans played weak on purpose to avoid conflict? Or was this something more? Something dangerous? Zixara wasn't sure what scared her more, the fact that humans had this kind of power, or the fact that they had been hiding it so well. She looked at Ethan again. The human she had fought was soft, harmless, amusing. Now, standing in front of her, he looked like a predator. For the first time in her life, she was afraid of a human, and Ethan knew it. But instead of taking advantage of her fear, he simply sighed and walked past her. He picked up the gravity manipulator, spinning it effortlessly in his hand before setting it back on the shelf. "This was a mistake," he murmured. "You weren't supposed to see this." Zixara's claws twitched. "Then why didn't you lock the door?" she challenged, her voice sharp. Ethan glanced at her, a knowing smirk forming on his lips. "Maybe I wanted you to see." Zixara's stomach twisted. She didn't know if he was joking. And that terrified her even more. Suddenly, the station shuddered violently. A red warning light flashed above them, and a loud alarm blared through the halls. "Emergency alert. Unidentified hostile ships detected. All personnel prepare for potential boarding." Zixara's head snapped toward the door. "Pirates," she muttered, eyes widening. No, no, the station defenses should hold. Ethan sighed, rubbing his forehead. No, they won't. Zixara's breath hitched. He said it so calmly, like he had seen this before, like he already knew what was about to happen. What do you mean? She asked, her voice tense. Ethan turned to her, his smirk fading into something colder. I mean, you're about to see why humans don't show their real strength, he said, picking up the railgun. He checked the ammo, then looked back at her. Try to keep up. Then he walked out the door. Zixara hesitated for only a second before grabbing a weapon from the shelf and following him. She didn't know what was about to happen, but she had a feeling she was about to find out just how dangerous humans really were. Confrontation. Zixara's heart pounded as she followed Ethan down the corridor. The alarm lights flashed red, casting eerie shadows along the metallic walls of the station. The distant sound of explosions rumbled through the structure, making it clear the station's defenses were failing. Zixara had fought before. She had trained for emergencies, but right now, something felt different. She wasn't just running toward a fight. She was running beside a human who had been hiding his true strength, and she didn't know what scared her more, the incoming pirates or Ethan himself. They'd reached the armory doors. Zixara's claws instinctively moved toward the control panel to override the lock, but Ethan simply raised his palm and pressed it against the scanner. Access granted. The doors slid open. Zixara froze. The armory was empty. All the station's standard weapons gone. Racks were stripped bare. The emergency supply crates had been forced open, their contents missing. Her stomach dropped. They got here first, she muttered. Ethan, however, wasn't fazed. Expected, he said casually, striding inside. Pirates always know where to hit first. Zixara clenched her fists, then were unarmed. Ethan shot her a look. You might be. Before she could ask what he meant, he walked to the back of the room, where an unmarked steel panel was built into the wall. Zixara had seen it before, but she had never paid attention to it. It was just part of the station's design. Nothing special. At least, that's what she had thought. Ethan reached up and pressed a sequence of buttons on the side. With a hiss of compressed air, the steel panel slid open, revealing a hidden compartment. Zixara's breath caught in her throat. Inside, human weapons gleamed under the dim emergency lights. Not standard issue. Not bulky, sluggish plasma rifles like the ones used by the station's security teams. These were sleek, powerful, deadly. Zixara recognized some of them: the railgun, the compact pulse rifle, the shock blade. But others were completely foreign, devices she had never seen before, weapons that shouldn't exist. She turned to Ethan in disbelief. How? She whispered. Ethan grabbed a small, curved weapon from the rack, checking its power levels with a quick glance. Because, he said, tossing a gun toward her. Zixara caught it, barely, staring at the smooth, lightweight grip. Because, Ethan repeated, looking up at her with that calm, unreadable expression. Humans don't fight fair. A thunderous explosion shook the station. The pirates were inside. Zixara gritted her teeth. She had fought before, but never like this. Never with weapons this advanced. And never alongside a human who had obviously been trained for something more than just engineering. Ethan holstered a small sidearm and picked up a strange-looking rifle that pulsed with blue energy. Let's go, he said, striding toward the exit. Zixara hesitated. This was not the Ethan she thought she knew. This was someone else, someone far more dangerous. But before she could process it, a loud metallic crash echoed from the hallway. Then, heavy footsteps. Zixara's instincts kicked in. The pirates were close. Ethan didn't seem worried. Instead, he smiled. Not a smile of amusement. Not a smile of arrogance. It was a smile of someone who had been waiting for this. Zixara swallowed hard. For the first time, she wondered. Had the pirates just walked into a fight they weren't prepared for? And worse, was she standing next to the most dangerous person in this station? The truth about humanity. The footsteps grew louder. Heavy boots clanked against the metal floor, echoing through the hallway. The pirates were moving fast. Too fast. Zixara's claws twitched against the smooth grip of the human weapon Ethan had tossed her. It felt too light, too easy to hold. She had trained with standard-issue plasma rifles before. Bulky, slow, predictable. This was different. This weapon felt alive. She didn't have time to figure out why. Ethan moved first, like he had done this 100 times before. He took position behind the armory doorway, his body low, movement smooth, not hesitant, not afraid. Zixara barely had time to react before the first pirate rounded the corner. A massive, hulking creature with rusted armor and cybernetic implants, his jagged rifle already raised. Ethan didn't hesitate. With a single movement, he lifted his weapon and fired. THZZTT. A thin blue projectile shot through the air. Not plasma. Not a laser. Something faster. Something quieter. The pirate collapsed instantly, his weapon clattering to the floor. Zixara's brain struggled to process what she had just seen. There had been no sound, no recoil, no energy discharge. Just pure precision. Ethan had taken down a fully armored mercenary with one shot. And he looked bored. One down, he muttered. Zixara barely had time to react before more pirates flooded in. Chaos erupted. The hallway filled with shouts, gunfire, and the sharp snap-crack of Ethan's strange human weapon. Zixara moved on instinct. She lifted the gun Ethan had given her and fired, expecting the same sluggish blast of a plasma rifle. But the human weapon responded instantly. No charge-up, no delay. The shot moved faster than her eyes could follow. One of the pirates stumbled back, a smoking hole in his armor. Zixara's breath caught. It was effortless. Ethan was already taking down another, his movements fluid, methodical. Not like a soldier. Like a hunter. The remaining pirates hesitated. This was supposed to be easy. Humans were weak. This station was supposed to be undefended. Instead, they were losing. To one human. Ethan tilted his head, watching as the surviving pirates scrambled to find cover. A predator sizing up prey. Zixara could barely believe what she was seeing. She had trained in combat for years. She had studied under some of the best tacticians in the Galactic Council. And yet she had never seen anyone fight like this. Humans weren't supposed to be this fast, this efficient, this dangerous. And then, in the middle of the chaos, Ethan spoke. "You know what your problem is." He called out casually, addressing the pirates now cowering behind cover. There was a pause. The pirates didn't respond. Ethan just smirked. "You underestimated us." Then he moved. Too fast. Too precise. Before Zixara could even blink, Ethan was already on the offensive, using cover, repositioning, firing with perfect accuracy. It wasn't just skill. It wasn't just training. It was something else. Something that sent a chill down Zixara's spine. Humans were never as weak as the galaxy believed. They had just been hiding it. The last pirate fell with a thud. Silence filled the hallway. Smoke curled from the barrel of Ethan's weapon. He exhaled calmly, as if he had just finished a simple engineering task. Zixara, on the other hand, was stunned. She couldn't look away from him. Not just because of what he had done, but because of how easily he had done it. She had thought humans were clumsy, slow, weak. Now she knew the truth. Humans weren't weak. They were efficient, and efficiency was far more terrifying. Ethan turned to her, casually adjusting his weapon. "You okay?" he asked, as if he hadn't just taken down an entire pirate squad alone. Zixara could only stare. Then, finally, she spoke. "What are you?" Ethan's smirk returned. Human. And for the first time in her life, Zixara understood what that really meant. A bigger threat looms. Silence filled the hallway. The air was thick with the scent of scorched metal and burning circuitry. The bodies of the fallen pirates lay motionless, their weapons scattered across the floor. It had taken Ethan less than 3 minutes to eliminate all of them. Zixara stood frozen, her claws gripping the human weapon tightly. She had fought before, trained under the best Zikuri combat specialists, but nothing had prepared her for what she had just witnessed. Humans weren't supposed to be like this. This wasn't luck. This wasn't desperation. This was something else. Ethan fought like he had done this before, like battle was just another day's work. And the scariest part, he wasn't even breathing hard. Zixara finally found her voice. This isn't normal, she said, her throat dry. Humans aren't supposed to be like this. Ethan gave her a sideways glance, as if amused by the statement. He casually ejected a spent energy cartridge from his weapon and reloaded it with a fluid, practiced motion. "You sure about that?" he asked. Zixara hesitated. Was she? Everything she had been taught about humans, the Galactic Council's reports, the scientific assessments, the military evaluations, all of it painted humanity as weak, undeveloped, harmless. But standing here, watching Ethan effortlessly take down an entire squad of trained killers, she knew now they had been lied to. Or worse, humans had fooled everyone. A distant explosion shook the station. The emergency lights flickered. Somewhere deeper in the station, an alarm blared 3 times in quick succession. Zixara's head snapped toward the sound. That wasn't a standard breach alarm. Ethan's expression darkened. "That's not good," he muttered. Zixara's stomach tightened. What does that alarm mean? Ethan turned toward a nearby terminal and began typing rapidly. The screen flickered, displaying station-wide security feeds. Then, his hands stopped. The screen showed something far worse than pirates. A warship had arrived. Not just any warship. A Corthan dreadpiercer. Zixara felt her blood run cold. "No," she breathed. "That's impossible." Ethan exhaled sharply. "It's happening." The Corthans were one of the most feared mercenary factions in the galaxy. Brutal, relentless, and technologically superior to most known species. Pirates were one thing. A Corthan assault team was an extinction-level event. Zixara tried to think, tried to process what this meant. "The station can't hold against that ship," she said. "We don't have the firepower. We don't have." Ethan closed the terminal. "We have me." Zixara's breath hitched. She turned to him, expecting sarcasm, but his eyes were dead serious. "Tell me you're joking," she said. Ethan checked his gear, securing his sidearm. He wasn't joking. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they dock," he said, voice eerily calm. "We either fight or we run." Zixara's mind reeled. Fight. Against Corthans. That was suicide. "I thought you said humans don't fight fair," she whispered. Ethan smirked, but there was no humor in it this time. "We don't." Then he turned toward the exit, his boots echoing against the floor. "Which is why they're not ready for what happens next." Zixara hesitated for only a second, then followed him. She didn't know what Ethan was planning. But she had a terrifying feeling that for the first time, the Corthans were about to underestimate the wrong species. Humanity unleashed. The corridor trembled as the Corthan warship locked onto the station. Zixara could hear it. The low, menacing grind of docking clamps latching onto the hull like a predator sinking its claws into its prey. They were here. She turned to Ethan, expecting him to look nervous. He wasn't. In fact, he looked excited. His fingers flexed over his weapon as he checked his gear one last time. Zixara swallowed hard. This was madness. Corthans weren't like the pirate scum Ethan had just wiped out. They were elite killers. Their armor was stronger. Their weapons were deadlier. Their tactics were merciless. And yet Ethan didn't seem worried. Zixara couldn't hold it in anymore. "Ethan," she snapped, stepping in front of him. "Do you even understand what's about to happen?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, we're about to be boarded." "No," she growled. "We're about to be slaughtered." Ethan tilted his head, studying her like he found her reaction amusing. "You still don't get it, do you?" he said. Zixara's tail flicked in irritation. "Get what?" Ethan smirked. "That they should be afraid of us." A shiver ran down Zixara's spine. The first breach charge detonated. The airlock doors screeched apart as reinforced Corthan soldiers stormed through. Their massive armored figures moved like a coordinated war machine, pulse rifles raised, their helmets glowing red with enhanced targeting systems. Zixara instinctively took cover, heart hammering. This was it. And then Ethan moved. Not like a soldier, not like a man defending his station, like a predator. The first Corthan barely had time to react before Ethan's weapon snapped up and fired. A single shot, silent, precise, deadly. The Corthan's helmet exploded in a mist of blue flame. Zixara barely had time to process what just happened before Ethan was already moving again. He was fast. Too fast. He ducked, twisted, fired. Every shot was perfect. 1, 2, 3. Corthan bodies hit the ground before they even knew what was killing them. Zixara's eyes widened in shock. Corthans were supposed to be unbeatable in direct combat. Ethan was tearing through them like they were nothing. It wasn't just skill. It was something else. Something frightening. Ethan's expression never changed. No anger, no desperation, just precision. The surviving Corthans hesitated. They had never seen a human fight like this, and in that hesitation, Ethan struck again. Crack. Another Corthan dropped. ZTT. Another collapsed, clutching a hole in his chest. Zixara could hardly believe what she was seeing. This wasn't just combat. This was control, and Ethan was playing them like a game he had already won. The last Corthan staggered backward, raising his rifle in panic. "Wah! What are you?" he snarled in his guttural language. Ethan tilted his head slightly. Then he smiled. "Human." He pulled the trigger. The Corthan fell. Silence. Zixara couldn't breathe. The boarding team was gone. Just like that. She turned to Ethan, trying to find the right words. How? How had he done this? How had a single human, one supposedly from a weak species, just annihilated an entire squad of elite mercenaries? Ethan noticed her staring. "What?" he asked, casually reloading his gun. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Zixara took a slow step forward. "Is this normal?" she whispered. Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "No," he admitted. "Most humans aren't like me." Zixara exhaled, relieved, until Ethan looked at her again. His eyes darkened. "But if you ever meet the ones who are..." He slid his weapon back into its holster. "You should probably run. Respect and a new alliance." The station was quiet. Too quiet. The floor was littered with Corthan bodies, their once intimidating armor now nothing more than shattered plating and smoking debris. The battle was over. And Ethan. He looked completely unfazed. Zixara, however, was still struggling to process what she had just witnessed. Humans weren't supposed to be like this. They weren't supposed to win against Corthans. And yet, standing here, she had seen it with her own eyes. No, she had survived it because of him. Ethan let out a small sigh and casually kicked over a fallen Corthan's rifle. "Well," he muttered, "that was fun." Zixara whipped her head toward him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Fun," she repeated, stunned. "We were almost killed." Ethan shrugged. They were slow. 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 Zixara had fought against Corthans before. Their species was infamous for being some of the most brutal warriors in the known galaxy. Even the most elite Zakuri soldiers struggled against them. And here Ethan was, talking like they were nothing more than an inconvenience. Zixara exhaled sharply, shaking her head. She needed answers. She pointed at the human weapon still gripped in her claws. This technology, these tactics, why does the Galactic Council think humans are weak? Ethan chuckled at that, rubbing the back of his neck. Because we let them. Zixara froze. She had suspected it. The thought had crept into her mind the moment she saw Ethan fight. But hearing him say it so casually made it all too real. "You're hiding your strength," she whispered. Ethan simply grinned. "Took you long enough." Zixara's claws twitched. Why? Why would humans pretend to be weaker than they are? Ethan's smirk faded. His expression turned unreadable distant. "Because," he said quietly, "we learned a long time ago what happens when the galaxy knows we're dangerous." A chill ran down Zixara's spine. She could tell there was a story there. Something deep, something terrifying. She didn't press further. Because deep down, she wasn't sure if she wanted to know. Zixara looked at the carnage around them. "So what now?" she asked. "The Corthans won't just let this go. They'll send more." Ethan cracked his knuckles. "They can try." Zixara sighed, rubbing her temple. "That's not exactly reassuring." Ethan gave her a knowing look. "Then maybe you should start thinking less like a Zakari and more like a human." Zixara frowned. "And what exactly does that mean?" Ethan turned to a nearby console, typing in a series of commands. A hidden compartment in the wall slid open. Inside were more weapons, more human tech. Zixara's breath caught. How long had Ethan been preparing for this? Ethan turned back to her, his expression calm. Determined. "It means," he said, handing her another weapon, "we don't wait for them to strike first." Zixara hesitated, then slowly took the weapon from his hand. She wasn't sure when it had happened. But somewhere in this chaos, her entire perception of humanity had changed. Humans weren't weak. Humans weren't helpless. Humans were predators hiding in plain sight. And now, she wasn't afraid anymore. Now she was standing with one. Final scene. The message. Ethan tapped the console again, bringing up the station's long-range comms. Zixara watched as he began typing a message. "What are you doing?" she asked. Ethan didn't look up. "Letting my people know we've got a situation." Zixara's brow furrowed. "Your people?" Ethan just smirked. The message sent. The station's scanners flickered to life. And suddenly, blips began appearing on the radar. Zixara's heart skipped a beat. Those weren't enemy ships. They were human. And there were a lot of them. Zixara turned to Ethan, eyes wide. "You weren't the only one hiding, were you?" Ethan simply smiled. And outside, in the cold void of space, human warships began to arrive.